Welcome back to No Strings Attached Street Ministry. This is a continuation. I think it's number 3 on our series, How to Live in a Van. This one here was a request from a couple people about my ideals and my thoughts about prepping. And I'll try to prep that also towards the van, van living. Hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense to you. But first, let's start back in my own life to give you a little bit of ideals of how I feel and what I feel about prepping in general. I pretty much came awake, you could say, back in, let's see, when was it? 1992, 93, somewhere in that area. And that's when I started realizing that, the government wasn't really playing ball correctly. Just some ill feelings inside, about different situations and things. It seemed like I couldn't trust the news. There was just so much that just didn't add up. And at that time, that's when I started doing a little bit more research on my own and sort of studies. And I dug into some of these conspiracy theories, end of the world things, and you know how YouTube is. They can get you going on quite a bit of stuff on different channels these days. But it was almost sort of funny in a way. But I think the biggest thing that, concerned me was just the what if. What if some of this was true? And now I grew up, basically in the hills of Kentucky, and I saw what farming did and how how families do up there, and what it meant, to have actually there was a flood back in '77, I think it was, up there, and I remember the whole complete valley was completely flooded, and all the people's houses were completely flooded out. And I saw all them migrate to our front yard, where we were living. And we were staying with Grandma, up there in the big family home. And I remember when they all came up to our property, because it all came up and it was above the floodplain. And it was pretty much the only flat land around, except the hillsides. But, and I just remember all these people one morning coming there and looking out, and they had camps and tents and things set up all over our property. I bet there must have been 100 people there. I mean, scattered across that, across our yard, and in different tents and things. It almost looked like a tent city. It was a tent city. When the National Guard finally came in, they actually set one of their water tanks right there in our yard, so we had plenty of water, and they kept it filled and kept it going. But anyone that needed water could come there and get it, and Dad just let them keep it right there at the end of the property. And other people that did have can come by boat or whatever and get their water. And but that was like a one of those distribution sites. But yeah, it was like a tent city. But I remember the food situation and everything, that really made a big impression on me is, I remember waking up that morning, as I was eating my bowl of cereal, my mother and my grandmother, and, they were all sitting in the kitchen. They were just having a chat, saying like, well, what do we do with these? They didn't bring no food. They, how can we take care of them? And Grandma says, let's feed them. We'll just start a soup kitchen, we'll just start feeding them. And just in a young kid's mind, that was just, basically mind-blowing. Grandma, how are we going to feed all these people, As I look at the bottom of my cereal box, and I'm about maybe 3/4 empty, and I'm like, looked outside, and I'm like, I don't think so, It just couldn't ring a bell, But what I didn't realize, or I did realize it, but I just didn't put two and two together. My grandmother was very big in canning, and she had lots of freezers and stuff downstairs, and the meats and the the vegetables and stuff that she's put away, and her prepping as being a farmer, and and just that kind of a lifestyle. She had tons of food available, especially in canning. I mean, down in our basement, we had a full-size basement underneath the house, and I bet 3/4 of that basement was lined with shelves from floor to ceiling, all about, and just the regular metal shelves, and they were completely loaded with quart jars of canning stuff. And though she had stuff in there canned sometimes 2 or 3 years back, but it was completely loaded with food. And I remember over the week there of watching them families all sit out there. I just remember them opening up the kitchen, and they would just cook meal after meal, and it was continuous cooking inside our house, and the smells were just amazing. But what it was about that is how much of that prepping that she'd done, not knowing why, was so beneficial to so many different people at the time of need. And that just royally impressed me. It changed my life in the way that I saw things, especially in compassion for others. And I think that's what really helped me a lot grow. But that's how I was as an impressionable boy, to be able to see what I've seen and to see how it worked. Love in action, basically, is what I looked at. And made a big difference. It really did. As for now and then, 95 came along. I was opened up a little bit about the things going on in the world. Then I started looking at some of the channels about prepping and how they were stocking stuff back, and it brought back memories of what sort of my grandmother was doing. And I'm like, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. So I started, buying stuff and stockpiling and different things, and it really got all the way up to probably the 99, almost 2000, was really stocking pretty heavy. Then you had, the Y2K, thing. I wasn't really ridiculously crazy about all those theories. Then you had the Mayan calendar, and all the, the end of the world is every year, you compare to somebody. But, do I believe it? No, there's been so many of them that went through their dates and passed on. I don't even hardly give it a second thought anymore. But I still believe in prepping, because I've seen what natural disasters and stuff can do. I've been in 3 hurricanes, so I know what they can do and how they can devastate people. And I could just only imagine what that prepping could do for those. So it's it's something that you would definitely want to consider is looking at prepping. Now, if there was a SHTF, I think is what they call it, shit hit the fan or whatever it is. But if that day would ever come, I'm sure the good Lord will provide for His. He'll provide for us, and I have a lot of faith in that. So I'm really not too concerned about that. And besides, I'm 150 pounds overweight probably, and I'm sure I could lose at least that. I'd be a toothpick, but I could at least I could survive that. But I mean, that way, that would probably get me through about a year's of fasting. So I could actually do without the food for about a year. Probably do good for me. Probably should do that anyway. But anyway, as for how prepping and stuff goes toward the van, well, my mindset changed a little bit about that after I got saved. Then I started realizing the true thing about prepping. It wasn't about the stuff anymore, because my whole life has been changed about getting my mindset away from stuff. As young people, we tend to. My motto was back then was the man with the most toys wins at the end. That was like a race that we were. Who had the better car? Who had the better house? Who had the better wife? It was always something. Who was better, better, better. And it always wrapped around the stuff, the quality of stuff that you had. Well, after I got saved, I learned a lot about that. And I've come to realize in my older years that it's nothing to do with the stuff, and more about the relationships that you have. That's the most important. Number one, your family, and even right down to your friends. And I also believe in skills. A lot of people don't think it is, but I mean, if you're going to learn something, actually prep something, prep your mind. That's the biggest thing, is prep your mind. Number one, read the Bible every single day, all day long, as often as you can. You know, put the word in there and get the good word inside of you. That's not deceiving you. As for other information, learn how to gain your skills. Information is king, believe me, especially in that kind of situation. The computers are all going to be down. You won't have any kind of availability. You hardly ever find anything hardback anymore. So most of that knowledge that you have available today at your fingertips, that's going to be gone. It's not going to be there. And you're going to sit there, and a lot of even the millennial ages, you know, the younger kids, they won't have that reference to go back to. They don't have the knowledge or the experience to pull back on and to draw from. And then as the generations grow older, the ones that do have that actual knowledge in their head is starting to disappear. And through that kind of a situation, those older people are going to be disappearing a lot quicker. So that information is going to really supersede on the way it disappears. So, you know, then the world's going to be in a lot of trouble, because it's harder to find that kind of information, you know, out in the world anyway today, hardback anyway. You can imagine what it would be like, you know, if you know, everyone was down. Yeah, there might be even a copy in a library, but trust me, by the time you get to a library, even think about it, someone else has already broken in there and gotten that book, and they're gone. So one thing I would suggest for you to do is, especially living in a van situation and you want to do some prepping, if there's any kind of literature that I would suggest you to read, you know, or to grab a hold of and to keep a hold of, is the books about wild edibles. Another book about, you know, wild edibles is, believe me, is the smartest thing you could ever learn. There's enough food on an acre worth of land all throughout this country that can basically sustain your whole family. I mean, believe me, you might not realize it, and you walk over food every single day, you trample it underneath your feet. You don't even realize that you're doing it. So if you learn wild edibles and understand it, how to identify it, and how to find it, believe me, you're so much better. You're not going to go hungry. Might not be the best food in the world, but you're not going to go hungry. You're going to be nourished. So wild edibles. Get the books, read the books, learn the practices, go out and actually try to find these things. Put the knowledge to use. That way you never forget it. And that's why I always said about, it's all about knowledge that's inside here. Teach your kids. Sit down. I know they might not like it, but teach them and sit them down and show them. If you have friends that you hang out with, or a tribe, or whatever it might be, make sure that they know that. Hold little classes and even charge them if that's what you want to do. You want to find something to do on the road, hold these little survival schools and teach other van dwellers and things how to prep, and, you know, especially in, you know, those kind of things, on how to, you know, how to actually gain this knowledge. You'd be surprised once your name gets out there how much you'll actually be able to do, because they'll find the value in what you have to say. So definitely get the knowledge. Crafts. How to use a tool. What kind of tools. How to make these tools. What happens after a shovel breaks. How am I going to still dig a hole? You know, figure it out. Find a way to do that. Find out how to build the next shovel. How to build the next, you know, fire. How to make fire, you know, out of two sticks rubbing together, whatever. Come up with many different, you know, techniques and knowledge bases that you can rely on. And I think even Hollywood is giving warnings about stuff like this coming down. And that's why you see shows like Survival, and you see Naked and Afraid and all these other shows, because they're trying to convince you you might want to learn some of these things, you know. But just by watching a TV program on how to do it doesn't make you able to do it. You know, you actually have to get out there and actually rub those sticks together, figure out what works, what's wrong. You have to go out and find the proper sticks to rub together. Not just any 2 sticks can work. So you have to know what you're doing and how to do that. And that's what I'm saying. If you want to prep mostly with your mind and your knowledge and your skills. That's the smartest thing I could teach you about prepping. As for your personal goods, what I would keep in a van if I was traveling, first thing I would keep if I was going to learn to prep, well, let's see, what can I keep that's not going to take up a lot of room? Well, number one, I believe in seeds. You can gather seeds of all sorts. You know, you can gather, there's a lot of seeds that you use, you know, for vegetables, and, you know, and find out which ones you can use for sprouting. Sprouting is an amazing way to get a very high quality nutrition with very little space, and you don't even need sunshine to do it. You can do it inside of a cave. So even if you do have to hide in under a basement or whatever, you can still have greens and those kind of nutritional things that you need to survive and live on. So learn about sprouting, teach about sprouting. I might do a video about sprouting and sort of give you an idea and show you how to do sprouts. I do those. The only problem about those is my videos are not edited, so for me to do those kind of videos, you know, it takes over time to show you the products, but I can show you the techniques of what it takes to do that. But these are ideals that I think that would be a smart thing for you to learn and practice and actually, you know, hold on to. Bag of seeds, you know, you get a 5-pound or 10-pound bag of seeds, you know, mixed seeds. Honestly, you could store that in a bucket. You know, if you had 1 5-gallon bucket, you know, full of seeds, you'll have enough to do quite a bit of sprouting, trust me. And even planting a garden, if you ever had to do that, you could actually plant your own garden. And that's what I look, I always have enough to plant the garden that can sustain you in your life. At least have enough for at least 2 years, if not 3 years. That way, if you have crop failures or whatever, you don't lose your seeds. And then learn how to harvest your own seeds from your crops, you know, and dry them and to properly store them and to keep them up and use them next year. And that's why you have to go with heirloom seeds. You can't use any of this Monsanto's crap out there, you know, these other hybrid seeds. They just don't grow, and you can never get them to grow again. The only way that I've ever seen a hybrid seed grow is using the technique of what do they call that when you braid something together. You know, it's you notch a tree like you want to plant a tree, but you plant it on like another root base. There's, you know, different techniques about that. I can't remember what the name of that is at the top of my head. Grafting, I think it is. But you know, you can get a good root base of an apple tree or whatever. It's something that has a really good root base, and you can make a pear tree, an apple tree. You can have one tree produce 5-10 different kinds of fruit all on one tree. So experiment with that, you know, and let it grow and trim it and make sure that it keeps fertilized properly and take care of it, and see your products come to amazement. It'll blow your mind. I call those the freedom tree. You know, truly one tree will give you all you need. So look into that. Practice it. Learn how to do it. Not only it will help you with a good hobby, but it'll keep you busy as well. But learn about food and what it takes to, you know, how much it takes to survive, what it would take for you to do. As you're prepping and let's say a bomb hits today and the end of the world starts, where do you go? You're going to rush with everybody else in the world to the nearest grocery store. By the time you get there, trust me, the store empty, the shelves are going to be empty. So don't even waste your time going down there standing in line. Learn how to survive on your own, you know. What I would suggest, what I would be doing if something would happen like that, I wouldn't be going to no grocery stores. I would be going to a farmer. The reason I would go to a farmer, number one, or somewhere that I can find chickens and maybe even rabbits. And the first thing I would do is set traps for rabbits, try to catch those live and keep them alive. So I would maybe get a couple rabbit traps, you know, and keep in the house. That way I can capture some wild game. But rabbits they breed extremely fast. They provide really good meat. And if you have vegetables along with it or sprouts along with it, it still makes a good meal. Chickens is another one that sustain you. They're quick, they're fast to breed, they're easy to raise. Both of these animals can forage on their own. So that means you don't have to feed them. If you let them free range and you just keep them contained in a certain area and move the areas, they will provide for themselves. They will feed themselves, take care of themselves, and they will continue to breed. So that's the good thing about that, you know, is the breeding thing. And you want them rabbits to breed like rabbits, you know, as much as possible. Same as your chickens. Pull off a few eggs to eat on the side, but always have a few that you're just using as breeding chickens. Make sure you have one rooster, and you know you have to have breeding pairs, you know, of both. But this is what I would recommend for you to really do some research on and try to figure out how to raise this. And you know what? Even a suburban home, you know, in suburbia or even right downtown, you can keep a couple chickens. Believe me. If you don't have the roosters, chickens are not really noisy. Now the rooster, he gets going, and you know, it's hard to have neighbors when you have those. You know, they can really upset, you know, your neighbors really bad by having roosters on the yard, especially if you got more than one. But you know, but they're definitely a necessity. But you always have, if you're going to have chickens like that as pets, always know where the roosters are at and where you can find one real fast. And if something would happen, that'd be the first thing I'd do, be going to get me a Mr. Rooster. But rabbits, trust me, as long as you keep them separated apart, you ain't going to have babies. They're great little pets. The kids will love them. They have a great time with them. So, but, you know, the minute you put them in the same cage, well, you're going to start having lots of fun. Trust me. You know, but learn breeding techniques and learn breeding habits. Learn how to skin and how to process your meats of any animal. Now, if you had a little area and you still wanted to have even more, I think the next animal that I would choose in this world to have on my farm, especially a small little household farm, would probably be a pair of goats. Why? For breeding. They can produce great meat as well, you know, and they're, you know, you can get a lot of kids off of them. You have to know the techniques on how often, how willing, how to butcher. All the information's about it and how often to breed. But you can figure that all out. The biggest thing that I would recommend, the good thing about the goats and why I would recommend them, is they give you the milk. And with the milk, and you learn how to milk the goats, you can have a good flow of milk. Believe me, they produce a lot of milk. But then it also opens you up for your baking, your cheeses, so many different healthy benefits that you can actually get for that, make your life a lot more better, you know, in quality. So, you know, that would be one consideration. Yeah, it'd be nice to have the cattle and all the other animals and things out there, and the pigs and things. But, you know, it's a lot for, you know, a small residential home. You know, goats you can keep in your backyard fence just like a dog, you know, so they're not really that difficult to keep a pair of goats. And they're not noisy, they're not bad. They're good little animals. Pain in the butt, yeah, they are, but you get used to what they are and who they are, and they got their own little temperaments and things you get used to, but they're cute. But like I said, those would be how I would prep for that. Prepping in the van, like I said, your seeds. That would be my first thing that I would consider putting on my van for long-term storage. The rest, I think I would just have enough to last me 3 or 4 weeks, just like I normally would. You know, if you're out camping or living out west and you go out in the boondocking and things and you stay out there, you're actually doing a lot better than most. I mean, if you can stay out for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, you're prepping pretty well already. Now, along with the skills on how to make that stretch with wild edibles, that would really, or even hunting, that would really sustain you extremely well. So that's why for you, in that case, the knowledge is more important than what you actually have in store. Because if you know how to, and you have the knowledge to do all this stuff, and how to skin an animal, how to find it, how to hunt for it, how to set traps and nooses, and how to do all this fish. You know, you'd be surprised at what you're going to be able to do out on your own. And so consider that. Even dabble a little bit of knowledge even about fasting. Fasting is very healthy for you. So look into that, and maybe even do a few fasts. That way, if things do happen and you have to go fasting, you'll understand it and you'll be prepared for it, and you'll be able to accept it a lot better. You know, the hunger won't mean, it'll mean something different to you than what it does to anybody else. A lot of people, they allow that hunger time to really make them go crazy. But people that fast and learn to fast, believe me, the hunger actually goes away in a few days. So, you know, it makes a big difference for you. But the health benefits for fasting is amazing. Look into that. I believe that's God's way of healing our body. That's why He's asked us to fast. Spiritual improvement, believe me, there's so much involved in fasting that it's amazing what all's there. So that's sort of what I feel in my thoughts about prepping these days. Remember, if you do prep, if you have one, you have none. If you have two, you have one. So in anything that you buy in materials or tool-wise or food-wise, believe me, eventually it's going to be gone. It's going to break, it's going to disappear, someone's going to steal it, whatever it is, it's going to be gone. So that's why I tell you, prep more in your mind. Remember or to figure out how to make it without it or replace it when it does break. That's more important than actually having a device. How do I forge my own knives? How do I find the raw materials to make gunpowder? You see what I'm saying? You know, use your knowledge and figure it out. Trust me. That's the best way that I can tell you. Well, that's my thoughts on prepping. Leave your thoughts on prepping down there. Make sure you hit subscribe and ring that little bell so you get my notifications. You know, I am pretty cute to watch, so, you know, at least you'll have someone quality to watch on YouTube. And love to have you aboard. Share it with all your friends. Help me build this channel. I really think I got a lot of information that's very good, and I want to pass that along. But also I have plans for this channel, and I want it to impress me. I've been a long time YouTuber, but I've basically been playing with YouTube and not really giving it any thought or any credit at all. So for 11 years I've floundered. So I figured I'm just going to start making this, and I want to see my channel explode, because I really feel the quality of what I have to say is up there, and it deserves to be well maintained out there in the world. So help me build this channel up and get it going. God bless each and one of you. Remember, if you need anything, feel free to ask in the comments, or you can email me, or you can even call my phone if you want. And that information is all over my channel. If you look at a lot of my videos and things, you'll find that information somewhere. Believe me, you'll find it. So just feel free to reach out to me if there's something I can do to help you. I'm always praying for you, and I always will. God bless each and one of you. Thank you. Have a great day.